Stanley Success System is to get the maximum award. That means accident investigation, medical investigation, means hiring expert witnesses and guiding the client to the proper steps that they need to take. Everybody working together as a team over time to understand what needs to be done so that we're all successful, to make sure that we cover every base, to leave no stone unturned. Stanley Law, the maximum award, people. Welcome back to That's the Law. I'm Joe Stanley, and today we're pulling back the curtain on something most people don't know about personal injury law, and one of the secrets of the Stanley Success System. When someone hires Stanley Law after an accident, they certainly work with attorneys, but they also work very closely with an incredible team of paralegals who help guide them every step of the way. Today, I'm joined by Connor and Tessa, two of our specialized paralegals at Stanley Law. We're going to talk about what they do, how they're different, how they help clients, why communication is key, and how our team works together to pursue the maximum award. So let's get started. Connor, Tessa, let's start with a basic question. A lot of people hear the word paralegal, but they may not really know what that means. Sometimes I'm not really sure when people use it, I know what that means. But tell us about your role and what a typical day looks like. And Connor, why don't you start from your perspective?
Well, sir, a paralegal is a fancy word for a legal assistant. We are just that. We assist the attorneys in their daily dealings and their file management and throughout litigation. Really all from the beginning of a case when a client first calls us to the end of a case when we're giving them their settlement check. But the day-to-day life for me really looks like calling the clients, ensuring that we have medical records on files for each respective client, discussing their claims with the whatever insurance company may be on their files, and really just ensuring that everything is operating as smoothly as it should.
What's the one thing, if you had to describe your job and your relationship with your clients, that you think is the most critical thing that you do?
I would say updating them on the process, really what to expect over the course of a personal injury case. For many people, it's their first time going through this. And so if they come to us and I can give them a synopsis of how the entirety of a personal injury case works and how it will end, then they'll be a little bit more confident both in us as well as the results that we provide them.
And speaking of that, and this brings this to mind, is that I'm sure this is true, but do you think the clients are more comfortable asking you these questions about the process than they might be with a lawyer, and they might even be more forthcoming?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, as the legal assistant, we really are essentially the face of the attorney. And so in our managing of the clients, we are essentially the messenger of all of that information. And so we, instead of describing it or explaining it maybe as a lawyer would in what do they call it, like the attorney vernacular, legalese, that's the word that I'm looking for. We break it down and explain it in a way that would be better understanding for the client.
All right, thank you, that's great. And Tessa, how about you? What does your typical day look like?
So I'm not just a paralegal. I'm also the main intake paralegal and also our scheduling coordinator.
And we'll stop there. What does intake mean? Now there's people out there. What does that mean?
Sure. So your intake is essentially your first contact with us. So you call us and you have an issue, and usually I'm the first person you talk to. We go through your case a little bit, and then we run it by an attorney and see if it's something that we can help you with. So I'm the first person that gets to listen to what's going on, really understand, what's happening in our clients' lives, and, be able to relay that to the rest of our office and set up their files for success.
And you just put that perfectly, because I was going to ask you, what's the most critical thing with this first-time person who doesn't know anybody from anybody, doesn't know us from anybody? What's the most important? What are they looking for from you?
Really, they're looking for understanding and someone to really listen to them and get on their level and explain things to them that's not legalese, and it's not a paralegal going, hey, we have all this information about you, but it's really understanding who they are as a person and where they're coming from. And I think that's why we do such a good job, because we really understand where our clients are coming from and kind of handhold them into where they're going, what everything can look like. And that starts with me.
Yeah. And let me ask you, people in your, I'm sure this is true, but can you sense when people are not forthcoming, they're not where they need to be in the process?
Absolutely. And from my experience, it really comes from fear that, they might be judged or they might not be taken seriously. But the best thing that any new person coming to our firm can do is be as forthcoming as possible. Give us as much information as you can. That way we can really determine what the best next steps are, and go from there and make sure that we have all of your best interests in mind.
Let me ask you that intake part. But what's the hardest thing you have to do in the intake part? And I know what the answer to this is.
Oh my gosh.
I know what this is.
Really, the hardest thing I have to do with the intake is not put my heart into it and kind of let the clients lead the conversation so I know where they're going. That way, when I do put my heart and my empathy in it, I know where it should be placed.
Excellent. We get a lot of people who call about all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And this is part of the intake process. How do you deal with the job of being chief rejecter or the initial rejecter, or the person who has to tell them that, sorry, this isn't something that can be helped or we can help you with?
Mm-hmm. Just a lot of compassion. Because even if we can't help you, we do know that these are very serious issues for, everybody, and everybody's going through a lot all the time. And if it's not something we can do, I try to give you guys, per the attorneys, the best place that you can look for help, and the best sort of referral systems. And we do now have a referral resource that you and Taylor put together that we can text our clients and say, hey, unfortunately, we could not help you, but here are some places that might be able to, which is really nice.
Okay, that's only a little bit of your job. So what's the rest of it?
The rest of it is scheduling. So all of our current clients have heard from me probably 1 million times to schedule appointments with their attorneys, with their IMEs, which is an independent medical examination that is set up by your insurance company if you're in an auto accident. So a lot of our clients hear from me, and usually it's a very quick conversation, and I'm telling you when things are happening, or I'm asking when you're available. And that's incredibly important, because if we don't have those calls and we don't have those appointments, we can't make sure you're on the right path, and that's all we want.
Well, that's an interesting. I'm going to ask Connor about this, given that he's a military guy, and even though someone would say you're serious, I don't think you're serious at all, but that's okay. You're serious in the right way. But being organized, and this magical word meticulous that's used to describe you, out of clients, it's a scheduling part that fits in. You work obviously in a team with Tessa, but are clients as organized and meticulous as you, or is that something that is part of the paralegal quote unquote mission?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely part of the paralegal mission, to kind of build on what I had said earlier about being that messenger and converting legalese to common language. It works both ways. And so, for a client to be new to this situation, new to what to expect, and similar to what Tessa said there, when, they might be nervous about being judged, or will intentionally not tell you the full amount of information. It's our job to figure out the truth and translate that into something that's applicable for a personal injury case, to ensure that we do both everything right and ensure the best results.
And I know you both know this, and this is because one of the things that is very important in what we do and you do in the whole process is to make sure that people expectations they understand them, and that they're being managed so that they understand the process. Because without an understanding of the process, I'm sure you get when it's not understood, you get frustration.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Tessa, I interrupted you. Did we finish the full description? She doesn't really do much there. But
I don't do anything. It's fine. I just sit down and clickety clack. So, yeah, I deal with a lot of people who have a lot of frustrations, not just in the initial portion of it, because we do get people who are very frustrated with what's happening. But we also get people who have kind of been in it and still don't really understand what's happening. And we take a lot of those calls. I take a lot of those calls. And it's, for me, quite, I don't want to say easy, but it's easier for me to kind of calm people down a little bit and go, this is where you are in your case, and this is what's happening, and this is what's the next scheduled thing. And I find that when people know that there is something that is scheduled and something on the books, they are like, okay, this makes more sense. There's at least something there. And the paralegals are absolutely wonderful about following up with them and going, hey, Tessa gave you a call, or you called her, and walking them through the rest of those steps, which is great.
Well, clearly, and I can claim it was my genius to have you as the job, where you have your great listening skills, but it's really, you made yourself excellent and invaluable with your skills and your compassion. And I would think that this spills over into the rest of the team, because we're all interrelated. You work with everybody.
Yeah.
And I think Connor would agree, is that a team is a team. And even though we all are you might be working on separate clients, the theme is still the same and the issues still arise. And everybody, I think you both would agree that everybody communicates with each other.
Yes.
To figure out what the heck is going on or what has happened here. Now, we've already talked about managing client communications, okay? So, and I think Connor touched on it a little bit, managing the client's communication. They want to be talked to and understood. Gathering records and documentation, I don't think anybody, you each have mentioned this in a little degree, but Connor, I'll start with you. I know what that entails. It's a massive, massive, massive amount of difficulty and complexity trying to get medical records. How would you describe it?
Getting medical records?
Yeah.
Well, it's a hassle. I mean, there are many, many different medical providers throughout the state of New York. And if they're in the southern tier of New York, it may be, they may bleed over into Pennsylvania, where clients have treated, or even down into New Jersey. And so each of those medical providers have little nuances in terms of ordering medical records. And so they have little requirements that are not across the board.
And everybody wants money for them, right?
Everybody wants money for them. It's my understanding that New York State is one of the most expensive states to get medical records in. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. And I don't think most clients would know and don't even appreciate the ends we go to try and save them money so we can get their medical records at a fair or even reasonable amount of money, because that affects the ultimate amount they get at settlement.
Absolutely. And it's not a matter of just sending, a quick medical records request to the appropriate provider. It's a matter of following up and asking for them to cooperate with our medical records requests.
And what happens if you don't get medical records in this process? If you don't have medical records, the answer might seem obvious. What happens?
We can't settle the case.
Yeah. We can't even figure out what's going on, right?
Can't figure out what's going on, the extent of injury someone has.
How many meetings do we have about medical records, would you say?
Oh my gosh.
Twice a week.
Yeah.
And the rules, people, if they even understood a minimum amount of hassles we have to go through just to try and figure out, what the rules are, who wants this, who wants that. And part of the frustration with the clients too, when they want to know what's going on, why things aren't moving, and you say, we don't have the records.
Right. Yeah, no, the timeline for things, it largely is contingent on the cooperation of medical providers or even lien companies, really. They're just not turnaround times that we can control, but we can push them, and we certainly do.
All right. Now, Tessa, you mentioned you do the scheduling, and so you work with the clients for what the insurance companies do. Do you have any other direct contact with them for the clients, or you're just on the scheduling end of that?
It's usually just the scheduling end, but I do try to set up the baseline, I guess, for the medical records, especially when you guys first come in and we're talking about what your treatment is like. I do always try to make sure that the case files that we have are set up for success. So knowing who you treated with, knowing what your treatment looked like up until that point is absolutely crucial. That way people like Connor can follow up on it and send medical records requests to the right people in the most timely manner that we can.
Which you make a good point. Getting the information intake, by the way, it rears its head continuously.
Constantly.
Because if the information isn't collected initially correctly and implemented into the system, it's never there in a good way. So you always want to compile the information from the very beginning. Okay. And it's important because as a lawyer, I'm asking the paralegals to get these medical records, coordinate the medical records, follow up with the medical records, follow up with the client on their treatments. And then we get all of this information. And that's just as to the medical part. We haven't talked about investigation, which is a different part. Because every case, as you know, as the liability, who's at fault part, and the medical part. I always say that, the medical part is far more complex. And would you agree, Connor?
I'd say so, yeah. It's also complex, and this is also why Tessa's job is so essential to us as paralegals, to ensure that the client or prospective client is giving us that accurate information, the exact address of their medical office, because many the providers have multiple locations as well. And so just that alone will change the effectiveness of our requests.
So yeah, it's like two separate tracks. You're compiling all the information, and when you do an intake test, it's the same thing. You're getting all the information about medicals, but you're also, how did this happen? Where did this happen? Why did this happen? How did this happen? Where are all the pictures? Who was there? Everybody's supposed to have pictures nowadays, or video, or whatever.
And the amount of people who don't does surprise me sometimes. And it's very interesting when I talk to our clients who say, I didn't take any photos, I didn't think about it, which makes sense. You're in a very high stress situation, but we always suggest that if you can go get pictures of where the accident scene was, please do that and send them to us.
So legal liability, which everybody works on, who's at fault? And that entails quite a bit. I mean, that depending on the case, whether it's a car crash or a slip and fall. And you coordinate that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And so if I'm assigned a motor vehicle accident case and I'm trying to find who is liable, my first step would be to confirm with the client if they've either received an accident exchange form or a police report. If they only have the accident exchange form, which is a little bit more common, just because it takes a couple weeks or so after the accident for the police report to be available online, I would first pull that from the DMV's website or call the appropriate police department that responded and get the initial information off of that police report. So what that's going to give me is the defendant's information, such as their name, their address, who their insurance carrier is, which is the most important part of this, which will allow me to reach out to that insurance carrier, see if they are either accepting or denying liability based on the facts that have been shared with them, but also to see if they've received a ticket for the accident or to see if the police officer who responded has deemed them at fault. And so that's a very important aspect of opening a motor vehicle accident case.
And we have the luxury of an in-house investigator.
Yes, we do.
So how do you take advantage of Jim? Jim Littles, who's our in-house investigator.
I find that Jim is very beneficial for premises cases. And so if there's a slip and fall on an apartment complex or at a business, he can go in to either of those or whichever we need to go into, take photos of the length of a step to see if that it's up to code, or to take pictures of the condition of the building that precipitated the fall itself. And so he can take photos of the scene, and it's also applicable to a motor vehicle accident, but largely they're cleaned up by the time the caller gives us their first call. And so he can absolutely get additional information, or a pothole. He could take pictures of a pothole in a parking lot. Many people fall in parking lots, and we'll absolutely use those photos as part of our eventual negotiations or pursuit of settlement with an insurance carrier as we build up our evidence.
How does witness statements come into that?
Absolutely, yeah. No, if somebody was involved in a motor vehicle accident and they had a passenger, we'll have Jim reach out to the passenger and have them give their account of the accident itself. Certainly valuable.
And you're both familiar, there's an injury claims process for car accident claims and for workers' comp claims, for slip and fall claims. Those are all out there, and I guess if someone had to define, that's what personal injury paralegals do, whatever how we can use that word. But the management of this case is something that I don't think perspective is understood widely about. Okay, we've talked about, okay, we do an intake and we want to get all the information there. And that gives you sort of like a blueprint, right?
Yeah.
So you have a blueprint. So once you have the intake, that's the blueprint that you have to follow, and then fill in all of this, the subsections, so to speak, about that blueprint. And there's two big subsections. Who is at fault, and how did this happen, and why they're at fault? And then what are the injuries, how do they treat, and how do they affect their life? Now, the one part is figuring out the legal liability. It's a paralegal's and the lawyer's job, okay? The client doesn't really, other than telling you what happened, doesn't get involved. But the medical part is something that you, Tessa, and you, Connor, have to, I was talking about this earlier. Do you each have a methodology? And I'll start with you, Tessa. And we tell people we want you to do this, this, and that because their goal is to get the maximum award. And everybody wants to get past that message on, but what do they hear? I mean, what do the clients actually hear, and what are they perceiving? And I know from your, Tessa, you'd really do a good job because you listen, you're compassionate, you understand them. So is there a methodology you use generally to encourage people to do the things they don't want to do to make their case the best it can be?
Oh, absolutely. Usually, because I think you bring up a really good point where people hear the maximum award and they go, okay, you guys got it. I think some clients come to us and go, I hired an attorney, I'm pretty much hands off. It's usually my job at first to explain to them, listen, we still need your cooperation. We still need you to call us when your numbers have changed. We still need you to let us know if, you go to a different doctor. And I do that by following up. A lot of it seems very simple and very, of course, you would follow up with your clients. But people have lives. They have jobs and kids and everything else. So sometimes it's difficult for our clients to follow up every 30 days or every week or however long they follow up. So that's where I come in. That's where the rest of the paralegals come in as well. And we follow up and we say, hey, we haven't heard from you in a while. Have things changed? Because this is a partnership. It's not just on us, and we don't want it to just be on us because this is your life and this is your case and this is a situation you went through. We are here as helpers. this is a partnership. Please communicate with us, because that's how we get the maximum award for you. That's how we make sure we get from point A to point Z without a ton of hiccups. And that's how we make sure, going back to the medical records thing, we hit all those deadlines and we get things done as smoothly as possible.
And I'm guessing this is a good percentage, because I know all these numbers, but what percentage of the clients do not, aren't that cooperative in terms of understanding what they need to do to help themselves, and things we can't do that they have to do for themselves?
Initially, I'd probably say that percentage is a little closer to like 45%, but after I've spoken to them, that drops pretty drastically, probably to 15. And those are the 15% of people that I'm constantly
Drives you
calling.
Crazy.
A little bit, tiny bit. It's fine. I love
right.
talking to people. So I don't mind calling people, sending them letters, sending Jim out if I have to see, did your apartment change? Did your phone number change? Did your email change? Because we need to get in contact with you, because we are here to help,
Now, Connor, how about you? You're a different personality. But so do you have a skill set that you use to encourage the clients to be team members? Because for them to understand that, you're the one who's hurt, and you're the one we're working at to get the best and maximum compensation. So, and you have your skill sets. I'm sure everyone does. So tell us about how you do it.
Absolutely. So I would say that being personable is one of the most important parts of dealing with clients in the day-to-day, but understanding. And Tessa mentioned this in the beginning of this podcast, that she tries to do just that and have empathy for their stories. But I reason with them, and I reason with each individual differently as those phone calls come through, or as I call people. I attempt to look at it from their perspective and at least kind of guide them into making the best decision for themselves as it pertains to their personal injury case.
And now I'm going to ask you this question, and I know I have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. I'll start with you, Connor, this time. Unreasonable expectations despite everyone's best efforts. How do you, as a personal injury paralegal, a legal assistant, and a meticulous, empathetic person, deal with those people?
I think that might have been my favorite question of this entire episode. Many people have unreasonable expectations when it comes to their personal injury cases. It's not a matter of it mostly comes down to just what they want. And so, what they're not always considering are the policy limits on their case. And it's a very important part of this. I mean, if liability is clear and their injuries are severe, they may want $1 million, but there may not even be $1 million to pursue. And so a lot of kind of bringing a realistic or taking a realistic approach to this and helping them understand the individual nuances of their case would be to explain the specific conditions of their case. And so if we kind of go into depth, and if we've already had a conversation with the insurance company and they've taken a position, we can sort of explain to the client what their position is and their justification for it, in addition to our perspective, and kind of have that back and forth to figure out what, make an effort to help them understand.
Yeah. And speaking of unreasonable expectations, do they understand the difference between settling a case and having to litigate a case? Or is that something that is part of that expectation situation?
It is, and oftentimes they don't know the difference, or they're not aware of the difference. And so really when somebody calls us, very rarely have I ever summoned or filed a summons and complaint after having just been assigned a case. I mean, maybe it's happened once or twice. But yeah, no, I mean, when they first call us, we're essentially gathering information in support of an eventual pursuit of settlement. And so when we pursue that settlement, generally when the client is done treating, or at least near the end of their treatment, in understanding the full variables on their case, and in going into those variables to help them understand their specific scenario. If an insurance company, for whatever reason, receives our demand package or the document that we'll eventually present to them in an effort to settle, and they, for whatever reason, deny liability, which could also happen at the beginning, but I find that it normally happens closer to the end when someone has completed their treatment, we're sort of left with an option here. And so, there's statute of limitations for different types of cases, and I can let you go into the specifics of that if you'd like, but
Not today. We'll let that one pass.
But if they deny liability, then the handling attorney is left with an option, and it's to pursue litigation, file that summons and complaint, and get this before a judge.
And Tessa, do you have your own skills of dealing with unrealistic expectations?
Oh my goodness. Very similar to Connor. It's really just about explaining in the simplest terms possible what actually needs to happen next and what we need from them. Because I think sometimes the legalese and the jargon get in the way of what they think should happen or what they think will happen. I get lots of clients who say, I don't know what's happening with my case, and we've had the case for 2 days. And, a call comes to me and I go, hey, this is what's happening. This is the process. And explaining, not in any big terms, but really, this happens, then this happens, and this happens, brings that down sometimes. There are a few where bringing it down doesn't happen.
Connor, I guess I'll start with you again. I guess all the things we've talked about really come to encouraging and having the client trust our process. And that's your goal, I would imagine.
Yeah, building trust with each client is a pretty big undertaking. You're dealing with many, many different personalities. Very diverse. They all have different backgrounds, and it can be difficult to reason with them to help them understand or explain in a way that they might understand. For me particularly, I can pull from my own previous life experience, as I have done consistently when I've seen the opportunity to do so. And it makes me think of this one client who really was just demoralized, didn't really want to go to the doctor or make any effort to get better. And that ultimately was significantly impacting her mental health. But she has, a bit of a shifty history. She had a combat deployment to Iraq and is now treating at the VA for mental health concerns. And so I can kind of pull from my previous experience, bring her down a notch and reason with her in a way that will have her listen to my own personal opinion, at least as it pertains to her own life and her own priorities. And so she has since sought additional treatment and is now doing much, much better. And so I'm really happy to see that sort of an impact that I can have, even if it's just on one person.
Tessa, how about you? How do you try to use your ability to generate trust? I must have your own special way of doing it.
Yeah. It's very simple. I'm going to tell you a secret. It's just listening. Just listening.
I would agree with that.
And letting people, tell you their story without any judgment and without anything behind it. Much like Connor, I've talked to many, many people who have had big accidents and issues. There's one woman who she was calling us, and not only was she looking at, financial instability, but her husband had died on a job site. And it was a longer call than normal, but she spent a lot of it thanking me that someone had listened to her and had really helped her along. And because our attorneys are so amazing, we had somebody go out to her house the next day, which she was very grateful for. And since she has, moved into a new place and she's doing much better, and she's still grieving, it's tough to get over a loss of anything, but to be with someone for, I think, 35 years or something, and then suddenly they're gone, she needed someone to really have an ear and not have an opinion and not tell her what she needs to do, but be there and listen to her and say, this is what I can do for you. This is how I can help you. she's wonderful, and thankfully things are getting better for her. So just listening and making sure that you're not coming from a place of judgment. You're not coming from a place of, you need to do XYZ things right now, but this is how we can help. And I think that really helps people, give us their trust and feel comfortable with us.
I think that's great. And I really think that all these things we've talked about so far all fit in with the fabulous job you guys do to make the Stanley system work, because, that getting the client's trust and getting the clients to understand the process makes it possible for us to get the maximum award. That's where everybody is a team. So that's where the investigation, they have to want to be involved with helping us investigate both the medicals and the injuries. They have to understand that there's going to be experts involved and that the experts, they have to cooperate, because we need to have this information, and that experts are critical in terms of dealing with the situation, because you have to have all this information that you glean from them and that we get after they give us the information to combat the insurance company's positions. I mean, the maximum award goal is really demonstrating that we have covered every base, covered every situation, accumulated all of the investigatory information, all the medical information, hired all the experts, and present a cogent picture to the insurance companies, our friends at the insurance companies. And why does that matter? Why does that matter? Well, Connor, you deal with them all the time. I have my own opinion of insurance companies. What is your opinion of how the people not the people who work there, because the people who work there are really just sometimes people operating a computer program, but the businesses that they are, what do you think their main focus is of an insurance company?
I think the main focus of an insurance company is to be a mitigator. I think that they are in their position to reduce the amount of money that they spend annually on total settlements. And I think that they will, particularly without an attorney, probably offer most people nuisance value rather than what their case is actually worth. And so, yeah, I mean, they will fight you every step of the way, but we fight harder, and our results show that.
And the system we talked about is that there's a reason why. Is it more persuasive when you come to them with all the guns loaded than if you just...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If we are like, here's an entire booklet of all of our supporting evidence to support the client's claim and impact that their injuries have had on their lives, then absolutely, it's absolutely convincing to an insurance company and could be used to justify getting that maximum award that we're looking for.
And you deal with people there, okay?
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Tessa, I'm going to ask you. Do you think the more information you give them so they can fill in the dots and the blanks for what they have to do on their computer program, do you think that makes resolving cases easier for us?
Yes, it does. Yeah. If we have all of the information prior to the pursuit of settlement, absolutely. I mean, they're going to take some time to review everything that we sent to them. And so they will go line by line on the medical records. They will look at all of the above that we've gathered on the client's case and make a value determination in response to that. And so the more information we have in support of our client, the better position they'll take for us.
Tessa, how about your opinion of insurance companies?
I mean, it's an opinion. No, I agree with Connor. I don't work with them as closely, but from what I've seen, they're there for the money. They're not usually there to make sure that the client is getting better and getting well and recovering. They're there to make sure that they can be done with it. We get lots of people who come in who say, well, they offered me, $300. And we're like, okay, well, why? And when we look closer at it, it's, oh, you have fractures and you've been out of work for weeks. So no, let's see what else we can do to help you. because they will, like Connor said, they will just give them nuisance value and be done with it. So I personally think that they are just there for profit. And I mean, they are a business. I get that. But we have clients who are real people who are suffering and need the maximum award.
And it's a interesting process. And in fact, the current political state would tell you that how it's involved and is devolved into this sense. People get hurt in accidents, and New York has a crazy system, this serious injury threshold system, which I'm sure that Connor knows about, but he probably wishes he's never heard. And I'm sure that it's the same with Tessa. And I can say that for most clients, they wish they'd never heard of it because it's in place solely for the benefit of the insurance companies. And in fact, because money talks and injured people don't have a lobby in Albany, this current governor and the legislature passed bills to make it even harder for people to recover in automobile accidents, because large amounts of money were spent lobbying by Uber and other entities, insurance companies, to change it because they claimed their profits were being hurt. Now, I'm not sure. The problem with all of that is, of course, those arguments have been said for years, and insurance rates never go down. Their profits go up, but insurance rates never go down. But we all have to know it's a business. And you guys do a great job of bringing that stark reality to the clients. And that reality, of course, is all part of the system process of understanding this is what we all need to do as a team to get the maximum award from these people who don't want to pay it. I mean, the bottom line is that they're in the business of not paying. That's their job. And there's no other, I don't, if they tell you anything else, they're conning you. I mean, and that's okay. You have to understand that that's where they're coming from, and that's it. And so you do a great job about explaining to the clients how that's important for everyone to participate in the system that we have. And that working in the system is the best chance that we have of getting the maximum award. And, one thing we haven't talked about, how long does this take? Oh my goodness. Does it take a long time? Tessa, you ever ask that question?
Oh, all the time. I mean, going back to, people having unrealistic expectations, you get calls all the time that are like, well, I saw online someone got $3.5 million in 6 months. Okay, I'm not real sure where you saw it, but I can tell you that's probably a very, very rare case. But yeah, we get questions all the time about how long is this going to take? Is it going to take the rest of my life? It won't, I promise you. It will not take the rest of your life. But it does take some time, and it takes some time because quality takes time. And making sure we leave literally no stone unturned and getting all the information, making sure that we're, in compliance with deadlines and you're getting treatment and getting well, which I think sometimes gets missed by some of our clients because, again, they have lives and they're worried about finances. But it is also important that you are getting better and you are improving on top of, getting what you deserve, because you do deserve the maximum award and you do deserve to be heard and to be seen. And for, our company and companies like ours, but mostly us because we're the best, to take care of you in the way that we are going to continuously take care of our clients.
And, Connor, I know you touched on it. The process, settlement offers, it's not just one, this whole process. It could be multiple settlement offers, and then you get to a point where it's just, they're not being realistic. And the end of the line is that that's where the litigation comes in, and we really, that is the ultimate point of where you are going to make sure we get the maximum. But for clients to get there, it's very, very, very important that you do the job you do so they understand that this process that we have done, it's taken a while and the insurance companies are being what they are being, but the litigation process, this is just another step by them to grind you down. And so the deny and delay, so to speak, this is the time part, Does anybody ever want to go through with it, Connor? Does anybody want to really go through this process?
Most people do not want to go through this process, but unfortunately, when insurance carriers take a tough position on a claim, and we are in a position ourselves to, fight for our client as we always do, sometimes litigation is the best option.
And it's the only option.
Sometimes the only option.
And the insurance companies have gotten. We just had a situation where the insurance companies now have taken the law to an extreme. Not only by lobbying, is that they'll not settle small cases, knowing that they can't be sued because the cost of suing a case exceeds the value of the case. It's a shame, but that's what they do, because I don't think most people understand that when we go forward in litigation, we are going to spend as much time and money and effort as possible. And even the simplest case now to take to trial is tens of thousands of dollars. So if you only have a case that's worth $15,000 or $20,000, you can't bring a case to trial that costs $50,000. And they know that. And that to me, that some states that's not conscionable. That's bad faith settlement. New York, they can do whatever they want. So, but that's our system is to get the maximum award, but we don't like what the insurance companies do to make it such that people who have valid claims get closed out because of economics, not because of justice.
Right, and if you don't mind if I
Sure,
interject, I think that for someone's first time coming to us to represent them for a personal injury case, or even if it's just their first personal injury situation they've ever been in, I think that a lot of the things that we've spoken about may seem complicated, maybe even a little bit convoluted to some people, but I think at the end of the day, for most people, really their biggest priority is seeking treatment, making an effort to get better, because their overall health is what's going to benefit them the most at the end of all the above.
Yeah. And our goal here, believe it or not, and I know this is what you communicate to them, is that our goal is that we want to get the client the maximum award, not our maximum fee. And that's a and I'm not sure, I think that's what sets us apart. What does that mean? It means that there's a lot of situations where you could settle cases at different points and without having to do much work, and the legal fee is far greater than it will be if you have to spend years. But to the client, that extra $50,000 or $100,000 over the next 2 years is incredibly important to them. So that's the difference. The difference is that we won't take the insurance company's position, because even though it might benefit us financially, because our goal is to make sure that the client gets the maximum award, because for them, as you all know, that's it. That is their one time. And for others, it's important that they know that this is it, and that the client is behind us, and that their goal is the same, to get the maximum. And I think you guys do a great job on it. I really do. I'm very proud of you. It's great. And we're actually honored to have you working there. So thank you.
Great opportunity to be here, and we all appreciate you for what you do, and you've created this, and here we are.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that too. Thanks, everybody. I hope this conversation gives you a better understanding. It did to me, because we don't really talk about this much. A better understanding of what happens behind the scenes at the Stanley Law Offices, and that the secrets to the success of the system are always going to be the people behind the system, the people that do the incredible work, the paralegals, who support our clients every day and understand what it takes to get the maximum award, and understands it makes them and helps them understand what they have to do the same. So if you've been seriously injured or wondering if you have a case, we're ready to help. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, share videos, add comments, even ask questions. I don't know about that one, but until next time, I'm Joe Stanley, and that's the law.
Here at Stanley Law Offices, our approach is a little bit different than other law firms. Immediately when you call our firm, we're on it. The paralegal reviews the case with an attorney, we review the case, and then we see right then and there if this is something we can help you with or not.
Each case is different, so it's important to understand the nuances. Each person is different and they require different needs, so it's important to evaluate what those needs are, see if the client has any questions or concerns to ensure that they are addressed in a timely and efficient manner. Stanley Law, the maximum award people.